everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We have a lot to talk about this week, including the release of 2 new turfgrass varieties by OSU, as well as the significant rainfall we saw this past week. But first, wheat harvest is underway in Oklahoma. This as we receive word from the USDA that a significant portion of the wheat crop this year will have to be abandoned. To learn more, here's our ag policy specialist, Dr. Amy Hagerman.
Drought conditions in certain counties of the state are resulting in higher expectations than normal of crop abandonment. These could range from 30 to 50% in terms of the overall crop, but in individual counties, that's going to vary a lot. Some of our most drought-stricken counties in the state may see very high levels of crop abandonment for our wheat crop this year, versus our eastern side of the state where we may see a very good crop in terms of yield and in terms of acreage. In some of our most drought-stricken counties, many producers have already made the decision of whether or not to abandon a crop, potentially haying that crop and fallowing it for the summer, or even planting a summer crop. However, there are some considerations for those that are still in that critical point of making the decision. First is that grain prices are very high. You don't need as much yield per acre to still make enough revenue to cover your expenses on the acreage. This is going to create more flexibilities for some producers who may still want to go ahead and harvest that crop in their area, even if yields are even in the single digits. Before making that decision, producers need to talk to their crop insurance agent. This is really critical because a notice of loss needs to be put in place and that crop needs to be inspected before it can be moved into an alternate use. This includes haying that crop as well. But it also, any sort of summer crop that needed to be planted, that alternate use would need to be approved before the producer actually made those decisions. So having open communication with a crop insurance agent and your banker is really important before making those choices. In other parts of the state, we're getting a lot of moisture, excess moisture, to the point that we have flooding fields. This is also going to affect the ability to harvest those crops. Again, getting that notice of loss into your crop insurance agent is really critical. Within 72 hours, have a conversation, do a phone call, go in person, but then also there'll need to be that written notice of loss that goes in as well. So as we come into harvest, take some time to consider your options. Talk to your insurance agent, talk to your banker, talk to your local extension educator about what those options are and about the financial impacts to weigh the pros and cons of your different choices coming up. And just take good care of yourself. This is a very stressful time in Oklahoma in general, but the markets and the weather certainly aren't helping. And be sure to reach out for more resources on our extension webpage.
This is the Mesonet Weather Report, and I'm Wes Lee. Finally, we got the statewide spring rain showers that we have been waiting on, with the entire state getting in on it. It has been a long time since this consecutive days with less than a quarter inch of rain looked this good. Even the 3 at Idabel got reset with over 2 inches of rain that fell after this map was made. As of Wednesday afternoon, this was the weekly rainfall totals that had accumulated. Impressive is the red 6 and 7 inch totals from Logan County up through Payne and Pawnee and into Osage counties. The dry region in the south central Arbuckle Mountains also got a good 3 to 4 inches of rain. But probably most importantly is the rains that fell across the entire drought-stricken western third of Oklahoma, including the Panhandle. It had been a very long time since Kenton had received a quarter inch of rain, much less the inch plus shown here. Looking at the 10-inch fractional water map for midweek shows there is still a lot of moisture needed to correct drought issues in the west. But it is such a better-looking map than when we back up from just a week before, where there were a lot more yellow showing up on the map. Now here's Gary looking at the longer-term perspective.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, finally this spring we had a statewide rainfall and a statewide significant rainfall, and it certainly has done wonders for that drought monitor map. Most of the eastern half of the state, and a little bit more, a little bit extra, is without drought completely. We do have a little bit of those areas with still those abnormally dry conditions in the yellow. That signifies areas going out of drought at this time. And we still have on the western half of the state a little bit of moderate to severe drought, but then we have those blobs of extreme to exceptional drought, southwestern, northwestern Oklahoma, out into the panhandle. So we have had definite relief. We still have problems, mostly in the western half of the state. Additional rainfall will start to take care of those areas if we do get it. Most of that improvement's come in the last 30 days, let's be honest. Previous to that, it was touch and go. But we look at that 30-day rainfall map from the Mesonet, we see all those double-digit amounts from over there across east central Oklahoma up into northeastern and then all the way over into central Oklahoma. But we do have a large area of the state with at least 4 inches of rainfall. A few inches here and there make the difference between drought and no drought. And that shows up on the departure from normal rainfall map for the last 30 days. Again, those surplus amounts over in east central Oklahoma, over into central Oklahoma, a little bit out of control, 8 to 9 inches above normal. But a larger area of the state at least has about 1 inch to 3 inches above normal. And those, of course, trouble spots show up. The western panhandle, much of the southern third of the state is starting to get a little bit drier. And then, of course, west central Oklahoma, close to normal at least, but still a little bit below. I do want to skip right over to the last 60 days, the percent of normal rainfall map, to show that we do still have deficits in those parts of the state where drought exists. So again, over much of the western third of the state, we have less than 75% of normal, and in some cases, less than 50% of normal. So those are the areas we're looking out for where that drought can come back in a hurry and intensify in a hurry. Okay, I would call this May a good start at getting rid of drought across the state of Oklahoma. We have a long way to go over parts of western Oklahoma, but at least we did get that start.
We're joined now by Dr. Yanqi Wu, a professor and plant breeder here at OSU, to talk about the new turfgrass varieties that have been released recently from OSU. Dr. Wu, thanks for being with us.
I'm glad to.
And we're actually standing on one of the two
new
new
releases,
varieties.
yes.
Yeah, tell us about those.
This is the Bermuda grass, 3920. We just released it 2 months ago, and this grass is significantly improved in cold hardness.
Great. So talk about what went into developing this variety and the other variety that were just released.
Oh, that's many years answer, you know. Started from beginning, we need to select the best parents, then crosses them, then testing, evaluation. Finally, we figure out these grasses have significantly improved cold hardness compared with commercial standard. So we release it.
As we stand here, you can really see the two differences.
Yes. One difference is, as I said, is a freeze tolerance or cold hardness. Another one just happened now. This one, commercial standard, has disease. Ours, pretty good, resistant disease, right? So that will reduce the input or fungicide applications.
So ultimately save money for...
Oh, definitely. That's a lot of money. If you look at golf course management, probably the fungicide or this kind of things is one of the major improvement, one of the major costs.
So this is one variety. Tell us about the second variety that was also released.
Okay, second variety is not here. We have other plots that is improved for water savings. You know, turfgrass crop in the United States cover probably around 40 to 45 million acres. That's estimated, but pretty good. Many people agreed with that. That's basically the size of Oklahoma. You can see if we irrigated 1 inch water per week, that's a lot of water. That's a major concern. We developed that variety to save water. It is drought resistant.
So you work with an entire team at OSU on this process.
Oh, definitely. We have a big team. Dr. Dennis Martin, Dr. Moss, Dr. Fontanier, Dr. Nathan Walker. We also have new members, you know, Dr. Mian Xiang, Dr. Shu Haoyu. This is faculty level. We have technicians, graduate students, postdocs. We also collaborate with university scientists from other campuses like Texas A&M, University of Florida, University of Georgia, North Carolina State University, University of California, Riverside, and others.
So talk about the need to continue to advance the science and develop new varieties. Why are you doing this?
Yes, for this society, we need reduce input and increase the quality. That's our long-term goal. So we continue work on that. First thing, save water, water, water. Improve quality, quality, quality.
And the timing is good because we had a lot of attention in Oklahoma last week with the PGA Championships, and some of the previous varieties that this team developed, those golfers were playing on, right?
Oh yes, that's definitely. Actually, on the edge, we grow that grasses here, also grown on the southern hills. They like it, so shining.
Great. So the varieties that have just been released now, what steps have to happen before they are available commercially? There's a little bit of there's a few years now before they're actually grown and on golf courses, for example.
Definite. Normally, we need several steps we need to do. First, we go these grasses to the intellectual protection. We work with the OSU Office of Technology Commercialization. Then they're going to looking for collaborators. We call the master licensee. Then collaborators, master licensee, going to send these grasses licensed to salt producers, to their strategically located farmers. Then from the farmers, increase the plants vegetatively, then deliver product to consumers. That needs 2 or 4 years.
About how many years does it take to get a variety to the stage where you can release it and then it advances to the commercial arena?
Normally need 10 to 12 years, averagely, but every plant is different.
Sure.
There are variabilities there.
Sure. And OSU has quite a reputation with its turfgrass. There's previous varieties that were released commercially years ago that are really on some high-profile sports arenas and fields, right?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Actually, this is number 9, number 10 releases, and OSU team, they worked many years here and then get some reputation, especially improved in the freeze tolerance or cold harness. So they use these grasses, several varieties, in national football league stadiums like Kansas Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, Baltimore Ravens, even the Washington, the Capitol Hills. They grew the Tacoma 31.
Well, we're fans of Philadelphia Eagles in our house, so this news went over big in our house. Dr. Wu, thanks for visiting with us today, and congratulations to you and the team on these new varieties.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
And to read more in depth about the release of the new varieties, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Good morning, Oklahoma. Thanks for joining us again this week on Cow-Calf Corner. Our topic this week is safety and facilities in cattle handling. Facilities are important, but we always talk about an understanding of cattle behavior, stockmanship skills, and facilities are all key to reducing stress on cattle, efficiency of our labor when we're actually working cattle, and avoiding injury to both the cattle and mankind alike. So there's a synergy between understanding cattle behavior, a well set up facility for working cattle, and actually our animal husbandry skills, all of which hopefully result in successfully working cattle and avoiding things like what has happened to me. If we are thinking about the facility itself, there's a lot of different things to come to mind. Initially, I know anytime I'm going to lay out a facility, I start thinking about what are we going to build it out of? What is my most cost-effective means of coming up with the pipe and materials that I need to put into the thing? but there's several things on a checklist we should consider relative to a well-done facility. And in just no particular order, what are the size of the cattle we're typically going to be working in this thing? How often are we going to use it? Is it something that it makes sense to shelter and put inside, or should it be outside in terms of the chute, the alleyway, and the tub? What is the lighting situation? If we are going to actually put it inside, lighting can be an issue at getting cattle to travel and work through a facility like we expect them to. We want to think about things like drainage. We typically want a facility set somewhere where it's going to drain and not stay super muddy. And we want to consider things like the surface that cattle are going to be walking on. Is it going to be dirt? We're going to put rock in it. If it is going to be concrete, we want to get that concrete finished at a rough enough texture that cattle are going to have sure footing when they actually walk on it. So Chapter 40 of the OSU Beef Cattle Manual actually has a lot of good information on laying out facilities and things to consider. Other stuff that we want to keep in mind is just the behavior of the animals. And all beef cattle, regardless of if they're a former show heifer or a herd bull, have got certain characteristics we want to keep in mind. Cattle have a flight zone. Cattle have a point of balance. Cattle are motivated by fear. They typically only have about one thought at a time. They don't like to be alone. And understanding all those things in tandem is what permits us to lay out a facility to capitalize on the behavior of cattle, so they're going to work through it in the fashion that's most efficient for us and the cattle. Final thoughts on this topic. And yes, I have recently had an injury to my arm that was a result of some of what we're getting ready to talk about. But past information we have gathered in the College of Ag here shows that about 50% of all injuries to humans when we're working cattle are a result of bad judgment. And typically, in those instances where we have exhibited bad judgment and managed to get ourselves hurt, it's a result of being in a hurry, being tired, being preoccupied, or trying to get things done too quickly, which is exactly in how I ended up fracturing my arm a couple weeks ago. And all the above would be a checklist for me. So we want to think about what we're doing. We want to be focused on the task at hand. Let's give some thought to laying out those facilities so that they work as efficiently as possible. And let's give thought to the behavior of animals so that everything goes as low stress and everybody emerges from what we're doing with cattle as safely as possible. Thanks for joining us this week.
Time to check in on the market news with our crop marketing specialist, Kim Anderson. So Kim, what's happening?
I think this week is the food corridor. Russia's negotiating opening up the Black Sea for Ukraine to export food, specifically wheat and corn, out of that market, and that would put more commodities on the market. Also, Russia's already been exporting, but I think it'd free up their exports a little more too if they'd open that corridor. Of course, you had the rain over the last week. We've got that needed rain that we need. I think it may have negative impact on some of our wheat, but definitely positive impact on our summer crops, our corn, our soybeans, our cotton, our peanuts, and those. You look at the corn and soybean plantings, they've been going relatively well. And you look at the world situation. Specifically for wheat, last year you had 28.6 billion bushels, slightly below the record of the year before. You're looking at 28.5 billion this year. However, the supplies of bread flour wheat, hard red winter, hard red spring wheats, are significantly tighter than your other classes.
So let's get into prices, but first let's start with wheat.
Back in late February, wheat prices in Oklahoma around $7.50. They wallered around between $8.50 and $9.50 for a good part of time there, and up to $9.50 to $12. We peaked out at $13.30. We came back down into that $9.50 to $12 range. Looks like we'll stay in that for a while, but there's downward pressure, and especially if the food corridor opens up and Ukraine can export, because they've got a lot of wheat in storage they need to get on the market.
So what about corn and soybean prices?
Well, you look at corn and soybean, both the planted acres is probably the key there. Plus, it got dry enough for them to plant. Lower corn acres this year, higher soybean acres. Then you got Ukraine. Ukraine's probably only planted around 70% of their normal corn acres. They're concerned about having diesel for maintaining, working those acres over the production period and harvesting that. Ukraine exports 18% of the world's corn market, so that's definitely having a positive impact on prices. You look at the corn prices, you go back to the beginning of the war, somewhere around, just below $6, $5.80 in that. Corn was already on an upward trend because of the lower acres, tight world corn stocks. Got up around $6.86, moved sideways above that, up into your almost $8 range, upper sevens, and moving sideways now. Then if you're looking at soybeans, higher acres, slightly below average world stocks, well below average U.S. Soybean stocks. The war hasn't had much impact on soybeans because their stocks were already tight. You don't produce them in that part of the world. You got the range for soybean prices, $13.50 to $14.60. Looks like they're going to stay in that area for a while.
Well, there's a lot of variabilities, with this current situation. So how do you think the current market could, can sustain and go forward?
Well, the big question is how long will these high prices last? How long will this tight situation go on? And the general consensus is at least 2 years, if maybe not 3, because COVID set this situation up by emptying the pipeline, by interrupting the supply movement, and then we came into the war situation that strengthened those bads, that made the bad situation worse. The general consensus is 2 years, maybe 3 for these prices. I do think they will come down some, but not go back to, say, the average wheat price of $5.50 and the average corn price of $4.50.
All righty, thanks, Kim. Dr. Kim Anderson, crop marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Finally today, every year wheat producers in Kay County attend a special field day at Schieber Farms to get an up-close look at OSU wheat varieties. Once again, here's SUNUP's Curtis Hare.
To help neighbor farmers and farmers in the area, they got to have a test plot somewhere. Somebody's got to do it, and I had a good location to put it, so we just did it. Maybe we'll have some seed wheat that can help somebody this year.
Just a stone's throw away from Don Schieber's front porch sits a handful of OSU wheat variety demonstration plots. During the growing season, it's not unusual for Don to look out his front window to see fellow wheat producers and curious county road drivers hop out of their vehicles to get a closer look. It's the exact reaction Don hoped he would get when he started this.
There's a lot of people drive by and walk out in them and look at them too, and that's what it's for. They don't have to come to the house and tell me they're going to be out there. Just go do it. It's been a good thing to do and makes my place look better too.
Today is the 18th wheat field day on Schieber Farms. It's the perfect opportunity for North Central wheat producers to get a look of how different varieties are performing this year.
We have years and years of data to collect on the varieties that Oklahoma State has grown or partnered with that has done an awesome job of telling us what does well in our area. What are things that farmers need to be looking for that do well in north central Oklahoma? It's a much different climate than far out west. We're quite a bit drier. We're quite a bit cooler up here in north central Oklahoma. So it's nice to have something that's localized and very, I guess, even a little niche detailed to our area.
And this north central wheat crop has had quite a journey so far.
Well, it's a mixed bag. We started out last fall with perfect moisture to get the crop up. We got a good stand on everything, and then it got dry, and then we were living on subsoil moisture all winter.
Farming is day by day, and wheat is a tough plant. Late April, we are actually in a D3 drought, according to the drought monitor, and it's really turned around.
We kept walking the fields and didn't find any weeds or no reason to put chemical on. Now we've had all the rain. Some of the fields are thinner, and now the weeds are coming up. But here, our heads are just, I saw some heads a while ago that were making 4 berries.
Although the wheat is looking promising here in Kay County, it's the exact opposite situation in other areas.
Yeah, it's really exciting here to be looking at this, and they think it's a bad wheat crop, but it's by far better than anything we have in the Texas-Oklahoma Panhandle.
Sam Watson is a custom harvester from Texas who regularly cuts acres throughout the Texas-Oklahoma Panhandle, though there's not going to be much to cut this year, forcing him up north to find other prospects.
Well, it's a really sad deal for most of my dryland farmers. Well, it's really going to affect the bottom line because, you know, I cut 15,000 acres of wheat, and out of that 15, you know, we might just cut 1,500. Like I say, my people at Hollis and Wellington, I mean, they're zero. Didn't even get to graze or nothing. So it's going to be a pretty hard fall.
Although this northern wheat crop is looking significantly better than other areas of the state, for Don and other K County producers, they're still about a month away from harvest. The hurry up and wait stage. And wheat producers know it's time to cross those fingers during that period.
You know, we always worry about hail when we get close to harvest. Our average hail out here is once in 55 years, and I got hailed out here in 1993, so I've got a ways to go before my 55 years is up, so we'll see how that holds up.
Wait and see. It's the attitude you have to have on this unforgiving land.
You know, everything changes every day, so my grandpa used to tell me what the weather's going to be and I'll tell you how to farm. Well, that still holds true.
In K County, I'm Curtis Hare.
Thank you, Curtis. And a side note to this story, from all of us at SUNUP, congratulations to Don Schieber on his induction this spring into the Oklahoma Agriculture Hall of Fame. And that'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can see us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at SUNUP.